Money.
It's Latin for many.
Tick.
Now suck your blood. Now suck
Politics.
your blood.
It's politics time, folks. And I would like to start off with a little rundown and an update of the Supreme Court Sotomayor masking story, because it continues to evolve in a way that, we make predictions a lot on this show. Some of them are serious, some of them are not so serious. And the timeline on this is moving much quicker than I expected. But for those who may have missed last episode or weren't paying attention or something, we brought a story about, we brought the CNBC article reporting on it, which was this sort of scathing thing, how Supreme Court Justice Gorsuch didn't wear a mask while going to the in-person, whatever it is, Supreme Court meeting or whatever they call it. This is, a club meeting.
The council, yeah.
Yeah, whatever it was. Hearing oral arguments, that kind of stuff. Yeah, right. And Justice Gorsuch didn't wear a mask, and Sotomayor has diabetes, and there's reports about how Gorsuch didn't wear a mask because he's a bad person, and he was putting Sotomayor's life at risk.
Sotomayor had to stream in virtually because
and I'll actually read just a little bit from the original reporting of this, which was not CNBC. The original reporting of this came from NPR, from Nina Totenberg, who we will get to later. But the original reporting went like this: Supreme Court justices aren't scorpions, but not happy campers either. And it was sort of, it starts out like this. It says, it was pretty jarring earlier this month when the justices of the U.S. Supreme Court took the bench for the first time since the Omicron surge over the holidays. And Gonz, I don't know if you are using the link that I sent, but the link I sent was the very first archived version of the story, because I wanted to go all the way. Yeah, and you'll notice in the first sentence there's a typo, which is, I guess they just ran with the first draft, without finding a typo in the very first sentence. Because it says, it was pretty jarring earlier this month when the justices of the Supreme Court took the bench for the first time since the Omicron surge over the holidays. All were now wearing masks. All, that is, except Justice Neil Gorsuch. What's more, Justice Sonia Sotomayor was not there at all, choosing instead to participate through a microphone set up in her chambers. Sotomayor is a longtime diabetic, a condition that puts her at high risk for serious illness or even death from COVID-19. She has been the only justice to wear a mask on the bench since last fall, when, amid a marked decline in COVID cases, the justices resumed in-person arguments for the first time since the onset of the pandemic. Now, though, the situation had changed with the Omicron surge, and according to court sources, Sotomayor did not feel safe in close proximity to people who were unmasked. Chief Justice John Roberts, understanding that in some form, asked the other justices to mask up. They all did, except Gorsuch, who, as it happens, sits next to Sotomayor on the bench. He continued refusal since then has also meant that Sotomayor has not attended the justices' weekly conference in person, joining instead by telephone. And then it just goes into a very long article about different, I don't know, it's kind of like a big old roundup of all the the Supreme Court people.
The Gorsuch history.
Very mean to Gorsuch, yeah.
Right.
Now, after that, National Review. Oh, hold on. I have
a Yahoo link next.
Yeah.
I just did it in your sequence. So.
Yeah. I actually put the wrong one in there, but it's too late. No,
it's okay. I can. No, it's not too late. Just give it to me. What is it?
I know. That's the thing, is I don't have it. I was going to bring the NPR. This is fine. We'll take the National Review article. NPR responded because of this. This is coming from National Review, mirrored on Yahoo. NPR stands by Supreme Court mask story despite denials. NPR is standing by reporting from its legal affairs correspondent, Nina Totenberg, alleging that Justice Neil Gorsuch refused a request from Chief Justice John Roberts that he don a mask on the bench, a request that Totenberg implied was made by Justice Sonia Sotomayor, who is diabetic. All three justices dispute Totenberg's story on Wednesday. All three of them. So they're... First, Justice...
You hit a jackpot.
I know. First, Justices Sotomayor and Gorsuch issued a joint statement stating that, quote, reporting that Justice Sotomayor asked Justice Gorsuch to wear a mask surprised us. It is false. While we may sometimes disagree about the law, we are warm colleagues and friends.
Oh, my God.
Then Chief Justice Roberts issued a separate statement insisting that he did not request Justice Gorsuch or any other justice to wear a mask on the bench. Nevertheless, Totenberg wrote the following in a piece published on Wednesday evening. Oh, good. Okay, here is the... So see that hyperlink there? On the word piece. Yeah, click on that one. This is the one I meant to bring, but they do all the right quoting over in the National Review article, so I'll keep reading from that. Quote, this is from the NPR response piece to them saying, oh, Gorsuch is mean, and Roberts asked him to wear a mask, but he didn't because now he's mean to Sotomayor, putting her life at risk. All three of the justices involved came out in a public statement and said, this is false. No, and you know, when we brought up this article last episode, I made a point to say, you know, the media loves this sort of drama that they are creating with the Supreme Court. They love politicizing the Supreme Court, even though it's not supposed to be a political organization. They love, for some reason, recently it's like a reality TV show that they're scripting and trying to play out this drama in the public forum of the American news media. And all three of these justices came out and said, none of this happened. You made this up. We wouldn't do this, much less did we do this. And so Totenberg wrote back to them another story about, you know, in response to being
called out to make up stories,
being fact checked by the people she was reporting on, Supreme Court justices. And it says, quote, on Wednesday, Sotomayor and Gorsuch issued a statement saying that she did not ask him to wear a mask. NPR's report did not say that she did. We mentioned that. Then the Chief Justice issued a statement, that's Roberts, saying he did not request Justice Gorsuch or any other justice to wear a mask on the bench. The NPR report said the Chief Justice's ask to the justices had come in some form. So she's sort of saying, I am recognizing that I have been slammed. Okay, I think maybe I've been unfairly slammed, but slam noted. And then the next line is, NPR stands by its reporting, added Totenberg. Yet, Roberts' statement would seem to leave little room for any form of an ask. Totenberg's original report read as follows. Sotomayor did not feel safe in close proximity to people who are unmasked. Chief Justice John Roberts, understanding that in some form, asked the other justices to mask up. They all did, except Gorsuch, who, as it happens, sits next to Sotomayor on the bench. And I thought, okay, what sources were cited on this? So I was like, okay, maybe Sotomayor made a statement or her people made a statement or something to, you know, slam her conservative colleagues or something. But you go back to the original story and in classic fake journalist fashion, which is so common nowadays for, you know, the type of reporting that's allowed to be called news nowadays, there is no source. There's no source. There's no link. There's no nothing. There's just a reference to according to court sources, which could be anything. I mean, it could be a person, a secret mole or something in the Supreme Court staff or something. But the only reference to sources were court sources. And I don't even know all that include that. So, and a lot of times that kind of language is used to be so ambiguous to basically mean that there's no source. Now, why? Why for any of this? Now, I postulated last episode, they're ramping up this Supreme Court personal drama in the news recently. Perhaps to call question, to bring into question the court's, bias or unbiasedness. Are they truly sort of nonpartisan tools of justice or whatever? But recently, all in all, there's been all this reporting trying to make the Supreme Court seem like a reality show, like a Big Brother or something, and people getting into fights and quibbling and being nasty to one another for no reason. Well, the Supreme Court came out and said, this is fake, this isn't real, what are you doing? And NPR says, we stand by this possible, probable lie from Nina, whatever her face, Totenberg.
Toten lies.
Toten lies. Now, that got me thinking, who is this Nina Totenberg person? Like, that she would just do this, that she would be able to do this, no ramifications, more or less have a completely unsupported story, unsourced story. Not just an unsourced story, which happens a lot, but an unsourced story of such, like, pettiness, just arguing within the Supreme Court. And so I just kind of checked her out online. I mostly went to her Wikipedia. Very, very famous, long-standing journalist, lawyer, blah, blah, blah. All sorts of journalistic awards. Been on all sorts of, journalism outlets, whether it's TV or radio or the written word. But there are some interesting things down here in controversies and criticism. And let me read that to you here. Totenberg has made friends with a number of politicians and lawyers in national politics, and her personal connections to these people have occasionally generated discussion. What a great Wikipedia writer.
Occasionally generated discussion.
Discussion, not scandal, not, controversy.
Conspiracy.
Just discussion. Yeah, not conspiracy, discussion. Allegations that Totenberg obtained her scoops by untoward means were prevalent early in her career. So there you go. We're talking about untoward means. What are her sources? Stuff like that. Similar to this recent story. A fact Bill Kovac, editor of the New York Times, attributed to sexism. Oh, since she was one of the few women working in a predominantly male environment. Totenberg was criticized by some commentators for hugging her friend Lani Gounet during a press conference announcing Gounet's nomination by Bill Clinton to the post of Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights. Media critic Howard Kurtz reported that while Totenberg said she did not intend to give special treatment to Gounet in her reporting, she had hugged her because she had not seen her in some time. Then, Gonz, in 2000, some journalists expressed concern that Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's officiating at Totenberg's wedding. So her wedding was officiated by Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I'd say that's a pretty close connection with the Supreme Court. If Ruth Bader Ginsburg is officiating your wedding, could be seen as a conflict of interest. Totenberg responded she did not consider it a conflict of interest, since her friendship with the jurist was established long before Ginsburg was nominated to the Supreme Court. Okay, so you've been friends with Ruth Bader Ginsburg long before she was in the Supreme Court. Okay, so I would say Totenberg has a really close connection. But it goes on. She also had a friendship with Justice Antonin Scalia from when he was Assistant U.S. Attorney General. So she's good friends with not just previous Supreme Court justices, but also current. Well, I guess they're both previous now. Antonin Scalia, you'll remember, died of a alleged heart attack on a hunting trip with a pillow over his head. So that's interesting. But so she's very connected, very well connected. In fact, she's sort of the proto model for what is the norm in journalism today, which is you're just super close. You are an elite yourself.
Right.
You're in the elite circles. You are an elite, and you allegedly are supposed to be reporting unbiased on the elite, but you never know. The Wall Street Journal editorialist Paul Gigot wrote in 1991, this is how long she's been doing this, that Totenberg exhibits partisanship in her reporting. Washington Post reporter Thomas Edsel said in 1995 that she was cited as an example of liberal bias in public broadcasting due to her reporting on 2 controversial Supreme Court nominations.
Oh, she's just ahead of her time.
Yeah, her whole career is based around becoming friends with the Supreme Court and then biasly reporting on them. This is how she became who she is.
That's her shtick.
Yeah, it's her entire career.
Yeah.
And so, when some mindless drivel about non-existent Supreme Court drama, coming out by the sort of premier journalist, master of Supreme Court, journalism, but also good friends with the Supreme Court justices, it's a little suspicious. And so the thinking was, okay, this whole thing is setting up for something, or it's a distraction from something. For some reason, somebody wants to diminish faith in the unbiased nature of the Supreme Court, or something. Maybe they want to rile up public opinion about how there's more conservatives than there are liberals. And, we just don't know what it is. And then a day later, this article comes out from, where was this from?
WAPO.
WAPO, yes. This is from the Washington Post. And it goes like this. Supreme Court investigators force Trump and his children on the defensive on multiple fronts. Multiple fronts. So this is what happens a day after this mask lie story comes out. A flurry of decisions by the Supreme Court and federal and state investigators has forced Donald Trump and his adult children to defend their conduct on multiple fronts, potentially jeopardizing their futures or perhaps yet again allowing the former president to escape unscathed. On Tuesday, New York Attorney General Letitia James submitted a 157-page filing detailing much of the evidence her investigators have gathered so far on the business practices of Trump and his children. Focused on a possible pattern of fraud, the civil investigation is separate from a criminal probe James is running in tandem with the new Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg. Then, on Wednesday, the Supreme Court rejected Trump's request to block the release of some of his White House records to the House committee investigating the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol by a pro-Trump mob. Thursday brought a double whammy. We're up to 4 now, Gonz. 4 decisions on Trump by the Supreme Court in 2 days. Thursday brought a double whammy. The House committee sent a letter to Ivanka Trump requesting her voluntary testimony. In the letter, the panel said witnesses have told investigators that former White House advisor might have direct knowledge of her father's actions before, during, and after the mob of his supporters tried to stop Congress from certifying Joe Biden as president. And in Atlanta, Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis requested a special purpose grand jury to aid in her investigation into whether Trump and others committed crimes by trying to pressure Georgia election officials to overturn his loss in the 2020 election. Taken together, the events seem to spell bad news for Trump, but some who have observed him for decades are arguing caution. After all, Trump survived 2 House impeachments, avoiding conviction by the Senate, as well as the investigation led by Robert S. Mueller III into Russian involvement in the 2016 election, and several congressional probes of his administration. You know, when you lay it all out like that, Trump really has survived a lot of attacks.
He's Neo in the Matrix.
Yeah, right. Dodging these bullets. Have you seen the new Matrix yet? Okay, no. Don't get off track. So I'm going to stop there because the article goes on, and it is very interesting, and we could do a whole nother segment just on this article, but we're not going to do it. So it still leaves me to wonder what the heck is going on with Totenberg, the Supreme Court, that whole nonsense being sort of thrown out there the day before Trump just gets this onslaught of bad news from the Supreme Court. One of them is, you know, obviously they're trying to make a point that like, it's a conservative court and they're picking on Sotomayor. You know, this is what happens when conservatives run the Supreme Court. It's too biased. There's too conservative, and they're, you know, bullying the liberals on the court. And what's wrong with this country? How can we possibly survive with a conservative Supreme Court, et cetera, et cetera? And then the next day, it is a total onslaught against Trump, which if you're, you know, an unbiased observer, you know, you have a majority conservative court, you'd think, okay, maybe they'd give Trump a break on a couple of things. But they absolutely have not. They're allowing district attorneys all over the place to go full force with their cases against Trump. And the biggest one was rejecting his request to block the release of the White House documents, which he was claiming executive privilege. And that's connected to January 6th. They're like, what was going on in the White House before January 6th? And Donald Trump was trying to hide those documents, but the Supreme Court released them. And so, to bring it together,
I was gonna say, let's.
There's just a lot here. There's just a lot. Together. Yeah, there's just a lot of things going on, and considering that this was Nina Totenberg, who is notorious personal friend of a lot of Supreme justices, her to be sort of writing a rag, like a tabloid rag, a fake tabloid rag, by the way, that gets public admonishment from the justices, is very suspicious. So I'm wondering where Nina Totenberg lies on this whole thing. Was she trying to, you know, as a liberal, you wouldn't expect her to try to distract from Trump's failures, or at least his problems. I could see how, you know, if she's pushing for liberal leadership in the government and the Supreme Court, that she would want to make it sound so partisan that it's completely corrupt and we can't respect any decisions coming out of the Supreme Court. And then boom, the next day, it totally turns that whole idea on its head. So, you know, I guess I don't have like a full theory of everything quite yet, but
I was waiting for the big choker at the end.
You know, it's an ongoing story. Move. I was first giving this 6 months. I was giving this 6 months to develop, and it developed in 2 days afterwards. So I don't know. There's still more going, but you know, the long and short of it is the Supreme Court, I believe, is under attack by whatever you would consider NPR. I mean, they're technically not corporate media, corporate news media, but they are quote unquote public news media.
So you're okay. So what you're suggesting, perhaps, I'm not saying this is what you are saying, but
yeah,
what you may be suggesting is that the Supreme Court is not the NPR article, even though it's not factual, is kind of a warning signal to them. Like, you guys better comply with some of this Trump stuff, or we're going to keep slamming you publicly.
That's possible. That's one of the possibilities. So it's either the Supreme Court, is some sort of message to the Supreme Court that they're not immune from the sort of mudslinging in the news media, or you can get even more conspiratorial about it, that maybe Trump had set up, or Trump's people had set up, saw the news coming, knew it was going to look bad, knew he was going to be in trouble, and to benefit him, somehow feed Totenberg, notorious, respected journalist who doesn't name sources. You have some anonymous source, court source or something, or do something through the system, find a mole or malcontent in the system, and have them set it up where Nina reports on a, politically biased or politically divided court or something, in order to sort of craft a vision that what he is experiencing is some sort of, partisan retribution or something. That one's a little bit more convoluted. Both of them are not perfect theories, but I could see both of them happening.
Yeah, well, certainly.
It would be a good defense for him to, sort of feed the media with these ideas that the Supreme Court can't be trusted a day or two before they totally attack him on everything.
Interesting. So yeah, you're right. This is wow, we are really looking at all this through a glass darkly.
Yeah, I'm just saying, man. When we first read that mask story, it just smelled so fishy.
It did smell really fishy.
There's just something too fishy. Something bigger has to be going on. And I'm not saying I got it all figured out, but the 2 days after that story came out, the plot thickens over and over again.
Right. It's like looking at a beautiful flower, but something's not right. Turns out the flower is going to try to eat you.
Yeah.
Like in Mario World.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly what I was thinking, Gonz. You read my mind.
Okay.
So it's an ongoing thing. I'm going to be keeping an eye on a lot more Supreme Court reporting, and hopefully I'll be able to be a little bit more succinct and articulate about it in the future as more things start to happen. But I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention, so we can all follow it together.
Fantastic. Well, moving on. We're still in politics, but we got to touch on Biden here.
Got hairy legs. Got hairy legs.
And oh yeah, he said, I wonder what his doomsday clock says.
Armageddon's on the way.
So how much time he's considering is left. The Telegraph here. Joe Biden's gaffe may have inadvertently revealed the truth about his Ukraine policy. And it says here, I wish I had clips of this, but it's okay. We don't have to. The article does a good job laying it out there. It was 28 minutes into Joe Biden's press conference when the gaffe came, and it was a jaw dropper, especially if you were watching in Kiev or the Kremlin. The U.S. president appeared to say that if Vladimir Putin were to make only a minor incursion into Ukraine, then Russia would not face devastating sanctions. His exact words were, quote, Russia will be held accountable if it invades, and it depends on what it does. It's one thing if it's a minor incursion and we and NATO end up having to fight about what to do and what not to do, etc. But if they actually do what they're capable of doing, it is going to be a disaster for Russia if they further invade Ukraine, end quote. The comment whizzed around the world, and as the implications of what he had said sank in, a journalist read it back to him. Was Mr. Biden giving, quote, permission for a, quote, minor incursion by Russia into Ukraine, the journalist asked. Mr. Biden laughed and said, "Good question. It did sound like that, didn't it?"
Wow, he's so good at these press conferences.
In Kiev, there were accusations Mr. Biden was giving a green light to the Kremlin and anger that he would publicly make a distinction between different levels of Russian attack. According to the Ukrainians, that was a particularly dangerous thing to do, as Mr. Putin's preferred option is believed to be a limited incursion. It led to suspicions a deal was being done behind Ukraine's back. I don't blame Ukraine. You know, it's like Biden says this stuff. He's like, wait a minute. What?
Yeah, that is.
What are you saying? What are you saying, old man? You got to deal with Putin behind our back here? Indeed, the fear in Kiev was that Mr. Biden had not so much been wrong, but that he had inadvertently told the truth. A whole country of Canarians, basically. Whatever he meant, it was an example of Mr. Biden saying too much and talking loosely, a failing for which he has form. This is the Telegraph really going after him. In his first press conference for 78 days, the president was perhaps seeking to demonstrate his command of detail, ultimately speaking for almost 2 hours. This was that really long presser he did. But the moment he finished, White House officials desperately scrambled to clean up the remarks on Ukraine. They said what Mr. Biden had been talking about was the divisions in NATO over how to respond to Russian aggression. It was also suggested that by, quote, minor incursion, he had meant Russian cyber attacks rather than a small military invasion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but if anyone's paying attention to Klaus Schwab, the cyber pandemic is going to be so massive that COVID is just a small disturbance. Yeah. So, okay. All right. Following the presidential misstep, it was left to Jen Psaki. Poor Jen. Isn't she leaving?
Yeah.
How long? When is she leaving?
I think later on in the year. I think she gave like a year's notice in November or whenever she said it.
She said, quote, "If any Russian military forces move across the Ukraine border, that's a renewed invasion, and it will be met with a swift, severe, and united response," she said. A White House national security official added, quote, "He, Mr. Biden, was referring to the difference between military and non-military, paramilitary cyber action by the Russians." You know what it's like? It's when, like, a kid says something, you know, and the parents are like, what he meant was... This is kind of what's happening to Biden.
Yeah.
Within the hour, it was also announced that Anthony Blinken, the U.S. Secretary of State, would make a speech about Ukraine the following morning in Berlin. Hey, Blinken, can you clean things up a little bit for Biden over there?
Yeah, he's not the guy to do it. He's going to get into a slapping match with another diplomat.
Mr. Blinken
his specialty.
Mr. Blinken was expected to deliver a much more forceful commitment to the defense of Ukraine than his boss. For Mr. Biden, it was the latest gaffe on foreign policy. It goes into some history. But there you go. Good old president making
it's
Ukraine
just so weak. It just looks so bad. And
considering
that was the big point. Now, there's a lot of talk about the presser that he gave, about how it's the longest, presidential press briefing that was ever given. You hear a bunch of those reports like, Clinton, before him, it was Clinton who had it. But then Biden gives the biggest, strongest, loudest, coolest speech any president has ever given. And I think that was just kind of like, Mr. President, everybody thinks you're like tired and old and weak. And like you don't.
Oh, Shota, you want to fight? No, don't fight, Mr. President.
You don't
do a 2-hour press conference.
Yeah, you don't talk to the media often enough. You don't take questions. Every time somebody asks a question, they get escorted out of the building. It's really not a good look. We kind of need to spice it up. We need you to look strong. And so he comes out, gives this. I mean, I don't know what they loaded the guy up with to keep him going for 2 hours or whatever it was. But they load him up. They send him out there. He's projecting strength and vitality and talking longer than anybody ever expected. He's answering questions, but then he does such a weak job of saying, yeah, Russia can have a little bit of incursion, like as a treat. We'll let them do that. But any more, then they better watch out.
And it's almost as if he doesn't realize, he still thinks the internet doesn't exist or something, and like, you know, word will only get to Ukraine next week or next month or something.
Whatever. Yeah, it's
he doesn't realize
he still doesn't quite see. That was the thing with Trump, is like he would say crazy stuff.
Yeah, but he knew he was.
But he knew he was saying crazy stuff, and like that's why he did it. Like he did it as a strategy, for better or for worse. Still kind of remains to be seen. That's the problem with Biden, is he says crazy stuff and he doesn't know what he's saying is crazy.
Oh well, good old Joe will keep an eye on Joe there.
Somebody's gotta
keep it up, buddy. All right.